The space around the scout ship sparkled as it stopped moving faster than light. Commander Zara changed the navigation controls by moving her 6 fingers around on the holographic display. She had been on her own for 3 solar cycles, and her only job was to check out the 3rd planet from this system star to see if it could be contacted by the Galactic Federation. Earth looked like a beautiful blue marble hanging in front of her. Zara's 2 hearts raced with excitement. This was her first time doing an assessment mission on her own, and she was determined to show that she deserved her rank. "Computer, start scanning protocols," she said, her voice steady even though she was nervous. The ship's AI spoke in a calm, measured voice. Starting a full-spectrum analysis. Atmospheric composition. A mix of nitrogen and oxygen that is good for life based on carbon. Finding electromagnetic signals at different frequencies. Conclusion. Intelligent life has been proven. Zara leaned forward in her chair, and her big eyes got bigger with excitement. There weren't many intelligent beings. They were very valuable. If she could correctly identify this species, her job would be safe. She might even get a job on the First Contact Council. "Computer, bring us down to a lower orbit. I want to see their civilization up close before I suggest anything." The ship smoothly descended through the atmosphere, and its cloaking technology made it invisible to the simple detection systems below. Zara picked a big city to watch because she thought it would give her the best view of their society. The navigation system took her to a huge interchange that looked like it was for transportation near a coastal city. Zara's confidence began to fade as they got closer. There was something off. The sensors lit up with thousands of heat signatures, all moving in complicated, overlapping patterns. The readings of kinetic energy shot up on all of her displays. The computer had a hard time processing all the data. "Hey computer, what am I looking at?" Zara asked, her voice tight with confusion. "Looking at? Several armored units are always on the move. Estimated number, 47,000 that can be seen. Heat signatures show that propulsion systems are working. Chemical emissions have been found. Warning, organized patterns could mean that military operations are planned." Zara's blood froze. Operations in the military? She zoomed in, and her ship hovered several hundred meters above what people on the ground called the 405 freeway during rush hour. There were a lot of cars on the highway below her going in both directions. Brake lights blinked like warning lights. Cars moved between lanes with practiced ease. The heat from thousands of exhaust pipes made the air shimmer. "This can't be right," Zara whispered, but the proof was too strong. She saw a truck merge into the fast lane in a rude way, cutting off a sedan. The horn of the sedan blared, a loud, harsh sound that made Zara jump. "Computer, are those battle cries?" "Yes. Acoustic warfare has been found. Several units showing hostility and making claims on land." As Zara changed the sensors to get a better look, her hands shook. A red sports car sped up quickly, weaving through traffic with amazing speed and grace. Her computer made it stand out right away. "Elite strike unit found. Faster and more agile than the rest. Level of threat, high." She was horrified to see the sports car cut across 3 lanes, almost hitting other cars. The other cars swerved and honked, and the traffic moved like a wave. Zara said, They're fighting. But why? What are they fighting for?" She opened up her databases of battle plans from all over the galaxy. The patterns below were similar to a number of known strategies, such as flanking maneuvers, coordinated assaults, and controlling territory. But the size was unprecedented. This wasn't a fight, it was a war that spread across a whole region. Zara widened her sensors to look beyond the area right around her. As more red markers appeared on the screen, her heart sank. The 10 freeway. The 101. Streets on the ground. Parking areas. Everywhere she looked, the same thing happened. Thousands of these armored units were fighting in this never-ending war. "Computer, make the scan range global. I need to know how common this is." The computer worked for a long time. Zara felt sick to her stomach when the results came out. "Scan of the whole world is done. Similar patterns found in big cities around the world. There are about 1.2 billion active combat units. There seems to be constant conflict, with very little break during the night cycles on the planet." The number was huge. Zara had studied wars between 100 different species, and none of them had ever had armies as big as this one. And to keep things running all the time? The logistics alone were more than she had ever thought possible. She needed to learn more about how they worked. Zara lowered her ship to match the speed of the traffic. She parked above a part of the highway where several lanes came together, which her sensors called a high-conflict zone. A silver minivan tried to move into the middle lane. The blue sedan already in that space wouldn't give way, speeding up to stop the move. The minivan kept going, getting closer and closer until the sedan had to stop. A chain reaction of brake lights behind them fell like dominoes. The computer said, "Aggressive territorial behavior." The units seemed to be fighting for the best spots in the designated corridors. But why? Zara said it out loud. What resource could be worth all this fighting? She saw a motorcycle zip between lanes, using its smaller size to get into places that bigger bikes couldn't. Her computer immediately flagged it. Reconnaissance unit found. A lot of movement but not much armor. Probably gathering information about the enemy's positions. The motorcycle sped off, quickly disappearing into the distance. A few moments later, Zara saw what looked like a group of identical yellow cars with the same markings. Computer, look at those units. They seem to be working together. Confirmed. The markings on their clothes suggest they belong to a certain group. Watching how people pick up and drop off. Conclusion: specialized transport units, maybe for quickly moving troops. Zara figured out that the computer was looking at taxis. From her point of view, it made a horrible kind of sense that they were troop transports. She saw one pull up to the curb, a person get out with their bags, and another person get in right away. The efficiency was scary. "They're always changing forces," she said in a low voice. "No unit ever fully disengages. As soon as one warrior leaves, another comes in. The machine of war never stops." Zara spent the next few hours carefully looking at the combat units. What she found only made her more horrified and grudgingly impressed by how good humans are at making war. She aimed her sensors at a big black car with big wheels and a mean look. A truck, even though she didn't know what it was. Her computer's analysis was quick and scary. Heavy assault unit found. Reinforced construction and a higher position give you a tactical edge. Forward-mounted lights suggest targeting systems. The rear compartment probably holds supplies or ammunition. As the truck got closer to slower traffic, its headlights lit up. Zara saw the smaller cars move out of the way, giving way to the larger unit's authority. This was clear proof of a military hierarchy in her mind. "They've made it so that bigger, stronger units come first," she wrote in her log. "Smaller units give up land to bigger ones and recognize their strength." This suggests that the command structure is very well organized. Even during battle, a bus slowly passed by her, and Zara's sensors went crazy. Warning. A huge troop transport has been found. The maximum number of people it can hold is 40 to 60. Building with armor. Saw making several stops to spread troops over a large area. Zara zoomed in and watched through the bus windows as people sat quietly, many of them staring at small devices in their hands. She thought their blank looks were like the 1,000-yard stare of battle-hardened veterans who were used to the chaos around them. She wrote, "The psychological conditioning is amazing. Even the youngest soldiers aren't afraid. Since birth, they've been trained for this fight." Then she looked at the different kinds of sports cars that people drove. She saw a bright yellow Corvette that caught her eye. Its engine roared as it sped up. Elite strike unit found. The aerodynamic design cuts down on drag, which lets the car go faster. Single operator indicates a highly skilled expert. Bright colors might be used as psychological warfare to scare enemy units. The Corvette easily moved through traffic, and Zara noticed that other cars seemed to give it room, almost out of respect. She took this as a sign that there was a higher class of warriors. But what really blew her mind were the weapon systems. She carefully listed each one, creating what she thought was a complete picture of the terrifying weapons that people have. She decided that the headlights were both targeting lasers and psychological weapons. She saw cars flashing their high beams at each other, which she thought were threats or warnings of an attack that was about to happen. She said that at night, these became even more important because they lit up the battlefield and blinded the enemy. There was no doubt that the exhaust systems were used to spread chemical weapons. She looked at the emissions and found carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, and other small particles. She thought that the fact that people kept releasing these chemicals, even poisoning their own air, showed how ruthless they were in their commitment to war. She recorded, her voice full of shock, "They're willing to poison their own environment to keep fighting. The strategic thinking is harsh but works. They've decided that long-term damage to the planet is an acceptable cost of war." The brake lights were the most interesting to her. Red lights flashed at the back of the car every time it slowed down. She saw how this made the units behind them respond, sending waves of signals through the traffic. She said, "A complicated warning system that faces the back. Each unit tells those behind it about changes in tactics. This makes it possible to coordinate on the battlefield in real time without a clear central command. The communication network is not centralized and works very well." She saw a sedan suddenly slow down and its brake lights flash. The car behind it flashed its lights and the one behind that did the same. The warning spread back through dozens of cars in seconds. They've made a way for people to talk to each other right away using only visual signals, Zara said. Any change in tactical positioning is sent out right away to all nearby units. I've never seen anything like this before. The turn signals made things even more complicated. She saw a car turn on its right signal, which made a gap open up in the lane next to it as other cars made room for it to move. They let you know what they're going to do ahead of time, she wrote. This makes it possible to move things around without crashing into each other. The level of cooperation even in the middle of a fight suggests that these people have a warrior culture with very strict rules about how to fight. But the horns really scared her. The sound warfare was always going on and changed. It seemed like short beeps were either warnings or acknowledgments. Long, steady blasts were clearly aggressive challenges. There were a lot of quick beeps that seemed to mean extreme anger or an attack was about to happen. She saw a delivery van cut off a pickup truck. The horn on the truck blared long and loud, a sound of pure rage. The van beeped a few times and Zara wasn't sure if it was an apology or a challenge. She said, "The acoustic communication is complicated and depends on the situation. I would need to study their language for months to fully understand it. But the aggression is clear. These warriors are always fighting each other for power, territory, and dominance." Zara saw a traffic jam starting to form, and what she saw scared her to the bone. As the cars slowed down to a crawl, more and more units filled up the space. There were only a few inches between each unit, which made the density very high. "They're willing to compress their formations to a point where they could die," she wrote down. "The chance of a crash is very high, but they keep these tight patterns for a long time. Either they are very good at flying or they are used to huge losses." She watched for 2 hours as the cars barely moved. People sat in their cars with faces that showed everything from boredom to anger to resignation. Zara thought these were the mental effects of long-term combat operations. She said, "The warriors are showing signs of extreme stress. But they don't back down. They don't leave their units behind. They just keep going hour after hour in this long drawn-out war. I can't understand how strong you have to be mentally." A motorcycle suddenly came into view, speeding through the lanes. It went between two cars with only a few inches of space on each side. "Kamikaze tactics detected," Zara shouted. "Single operator, little protection, doing very dangerous things. There is no doubt about the bravery, but the number of deaths must be huge." She pulled up higher so she could see more of the interchange. From this height, the patterns were even clearer. Cars and trucks moved along each route, merging, splitting, crossing over and under each other on big concrete structures. She wrote, "The infrastructure alone shows how committed they are. They've built huge, multi-level battle arenas all over their cities. The engineering that needs to be done is huge. These buildings must have taken decades to finish, which means this fight has been going on for generations." A police car suddenly showed up, its lights flashing blue and red. Zara's sensors went off with warnings. "High-priority military unit found. Faster speed, special markings and acoustic warfare systems are all in use. All nearby units giving up land right away." She was fascinated by how well the cars moved out of the way of the police car. The police car sped through the gap and was gone in the distance. "Command units can ignore all local tactical concerns," she said. "Every warrior knows who is in charge right away. The discipline is strict." A few minutes later an ambulance came and the same thing happened again. Traffic stopped right away, leaving a clear path. "Multiple specialized unit types identified," Zara wrote down. "They have made very specific roles for each member of their society in the war ecosystem. Medical extraction units, command and control units, standard combat units, reconnaissance units, heavy assault units, and troop transports are all types of units. The specialization suggests that the doctrine of warfare has grown and matured over hundreds of years." She chose to follow the ambulance because she wanted to know where it was going. It took her to a hospital where she saw it pull into an emergency bay. Paramedics rushed a patient inside, she said, identified casualty evacuation and medical treatment facilities. "The infrastructure to help wounded warriors is very big and well organized. They know that there will always be casualties and have made plans accordingly." As the sun went down, Zara saw something that made her rethink everything she thought she knew about the war. The traffic kept going. If anything, it got worse. She watched as the highways became a complete mess during rush hour. The sensors showed that there were more and more cars until it was almost impossible to move. But the people kept going, moving forward in their metal shells and refusing to give up even a foot of ground without a fight. Zara suddenly understood, they don't fight for land. They fight for their place. So that you can move. They're all trying to get to different goals, but they're all using the same small hallways. This isn't about winning. It's all about access. And they do this every day. The news was shocking. This wasn't a war in the usual sense. It was a never-ending fight for mobility all over the world. Every person did it every day, willingly going into these war zones as part of their normal routine. Zara whispered, "What kind of species thinks this level of daily conflict is normal?" Zara thought the fighting would stop as night fell over the city. She knew that most species stopped fighting at night. But she was learning that people were not like most other species. The traffic looked even more interesting after dark, if anything. There were thousands of headlights that made rivers of light, with white light flowing one way and red light flowing the other way. The city became a huge, glowing web of war, both beautiful and terrible at the same time. "They've changed their tactics for nighttime operations," Zara wrote, her voice showing how tired and stressed she was getting. "The lighting systems become even more important. Even though I can't see as well, it looks like coordination has gotten better." She looked at a part of the freeway where an accident had happened. 2 cars were parked on the side of the road, their emergency lights flashing. Several police cars were on the scene, and traffic was being directed around it. She stopped when she saw what she saw. The cars were moving slowly past the scene of the accident, but they were moving. No retreat and no stopping the operations. The injured units were just pushed to the side and the flow kept going. "They are very ruthless when it comes to logistics," she said. "Damaged units are taken out of active combat zones right away. Mobile maintenance teams get there in a matter of minutes. They've made systems that quickly restore flow even when units are destroyed because the war machine can't stop." She saw a tow truck come and hook up one of the broken-down cars and pull it away. Traffic went back to normal speed within 15 minutes of the accident. "Battlefield recovery operations finished in record time," she wrote. "They've improved these steps by doing them over and over again. The fact that it happened so quickly makes me think that this happens a lot, which supports my conclusion that casualties are normal and accepted." Zara made her sensors bigger so they could scan other cities around the world. New York, London, Tokyo, Beijing, Mumbai, and Sao Paulo. The same thing kept happening no matter where she looked. All of these cars are in the same never-ending fight. "The conflict is really global," she said with a sigh. "Every major city has the same patterns. This isn't a war in a certain area. This happens to all members of the species. They've built their whole civilization around this daily fighting." She started to notice smaller things that helped her understand more. For example, parking lots were clearly places where units gathered before and after combat operations. She saw people leave buildings, get into their cars, and then join the flow of traffic right away. "They move smoothly from civilian to warrior mode," she said. "There doesn't seem to be a difference between their daily lives and the combat operations. It seems like every adult is a trained pilot who is ready to fly at any time." She was especially interested in the parking lot of a mall. There were hundreds of cars lined up in neat rows, and she watched as new cars came and went in a never-ending cycle. She wrote down, "Supply depot identified. Warriors are getting supplies and then going back to the front lines." The logistics network helps not only the combat operations but also the whole warrior class. This system makes sure that everyone gets the food, tools, and other things they need to stay alive. She saw families putting groceries in their cars, kids getting buckled into car seats, and couples arguing over who would drive. They didn't think anything of it. They had completely adjusted to this way of life. "Confirmed multi-generational conditioning," Zara said. "Even the youngest are taught from birth. I've seen young warriors, some of whom look like they're only 16 solar cycles old, confidently using these units. The whole society is set up to train skilled pilots." During pickup time, the school parking lot was especially eye-opening. She saw a long line of cars form, each one waiting to pick up a young person from the building. The coordination was amazing. Each car moved forward exactly when there was room. She wrote, "Educational facilities have combined pickup and deployment zones. These combat units are where the young people literally grow up. They've spent thousands of hours as passengers learning the tactics by watching other people drive before they are old enough to drive their own cars." Zara chose to follow just one vehicle to learn more about the experiences of a single warrior. She picked a blue sedan that Sarah drove, but Zara didn't know her name. In her logs, she just called her Subject Alpha. Sarah left her apartment building at 7 a.m., right in the middle of the morning rush hour. Zara saw Sarah get on the freeway and smoothly merge into the traffic. For the next 45 minutes, Sarah was always changing lanes, speeding up, slowing down, and going around slower vehicles while keeping an eye on cars in every direction. Zara said, Subject Alpha shows expert-level piloting skills. Situational awareness is amazing. She keeps track of several units at once, guesses where they will go, and puts her unit in the best place. The cognitive load must be huge, but she keeps doing these calculations while also using the unit's complicated controls. Sarah got to work, parked, and then spent 8 hours inside a building. Zara thought this was a planning or command center of some kind. At 5:30 p.m., Sarah got back in her car and started the drive home. Subject Alpha immediately goes back to fighting, Zara wrote down. There's no time to rest or recover. She goes right back to the war zone from whatever jobs she had at the facility. The drive home was worse than the drive to work. Sarah was stuck in traffic for more than an hour, barely moving. Zara saw her face change from neutral to annoyed to tired. But Sarah never left her car. She never stopped trying. She just waited and moved forward when she could, determined to get to her goal. Zara said, "The psychological endurance is amazing. Subject Alpha is clearly stressed and tired, but she keeps going. And from what I've seen, she'll do the same thing tomorrow and every day after that. The promise is final." Sarah sat in her car for a few minutes when she got home, just breathing. Zara thought this meant that the warrior was getting her head straight after a fight and relaxing before going back to her family. They need time to heal, Zara said. Even warriors who are used to this show the strain. But Subject Alpha will do it all over again tomorrow. The way this species handles daily stress is unlike anything else in the Federation's records. Zara broadened her observations by monitoring several subjects in various cities. The pattern stayed the same. All adults took these commutes, some once a day and some more than once. A delivery driver she followed made 12 trips through heavy traffic in one-day shift. She wrote down professional warrior class identified while watching the delivery driver. Some people fight for 8 to 12 hours straight with only short breaks in between. The amount of endurance needed is amazing. She watched a taxi driver work the night shift, driving around the city for 10 hours straight. The driver picked up passengers all the time, and each fare meant driving through traffic to a new place. She said, "Mobile deployment specialists work all the time. They move other warriors from one place to another and deal with a lot of different tactical situations during each shift. The multitasking is amazing. They navigate, talk to passengers, process payments, and stay aware of the combat situation around them at all times." Zara decided to look at the infrastructure that supports this global conflict on her second day of observation. What she found was even worse than the fighting itself. The highway system was so big that it was hard to understand. There were thousands of miles of multi-lane roads that crossed every populated area. Raised areas rose above the ground, making battlefields in 3 dimensions. Tunnels went through mountains and under cities. Bridges went over rivers and valleys. Zara wrote, "The construction projects alone show an unprecedented use of resources. They've literally changed the geography of their planet to make these operations possible. The engineering isn't very good by Federation standards, but the size is amazing. They've built a network of purpose-built warfare corridors all over the world." She looked at the materials that were used, which were concrete, steel, and asphalt. The roads were regularly fixed and kept up. She saw construction workers working on a part of the highway, fixing a lane that had been damaged while traffic continued to flow in the other lanes. "They keep the battlefield clean even when there is fighting going on," she said. "Road maintenance crews are always working to fix damage and improve the infrastructure. They can't stop the fighting, so they've learned to fix things while they're still going on, so to speak." From an engineering point of view, she was very interested in the traffic lights. At every intersection, advanced control systems kept track of the unit's movement. Traffic stopped in one direction when the lights were red, but it could move in the other direction when the lights were green. The timing was carefully planned to get the most work done. She wrote down, "Advanced battlefield management systems set up at every intersection. Computer-controlled coordination of unit movement keeps things moving smoothly and prevents collisions. The programming must be very complicated because it has to take into account things like traffic density, time of day, and strategic priorities." She watched a very busy intersection where 6 lanes of traffic crossed another 6 lanes. The light cycle could handle 12 different directions of movement, and each direction had its own left turn signal. Hundreds of cars went through every minute and everything went off without a hitch. "They've automated a lot of battlefield management," Zara said. "This lets each warrior focus on tactical choices instead of coordinating strategies. The way responsibilities are split up is smart and works well." Gas stations were another surprise. At first, Zara thought they were ammo depots, and in a way she wasn't completely wrong. She saw cars pull in, fill up their tanks and then leave. She wrote, Resource distribution centers are everywhere. Every few miles there are places where units can get gas. The logistics network makes sure that no warrior is ever too far from supplies. This makes it possible to keep going without having to wait for long supply lines. The strategic thinking is amazing. She saw a gas station turn into a busy place during the morning rush hour. Cars came and went all the time and some only stayed for a few minutes. The efficiency was amazing. She said, the process of refueling is quick and standard. Warriors learn how to quickly get more supplies. Most people finish the process in less than 5 minutes, which keeps them from being away from combat operations. It was clear that parking structures were military bases. Buildings with more than one level that are only used to store cars when they aren't being used. She saw one parking garage in the city center that had 8 levels and could hold more than 1,000 cars. They've built special storage spaces for inactive units, Zara wrote down. The amount of space available is huge. In some cities, parking structures take up as much space as homes or businesses. This means that people think the cars are just as important as their homes or jobs. She saw drivers going around parking lots looking for empty spots. There was a lot of competition for parking, and cars would sometimes have to wait for minutes for a spot to open up. She said, even in garrison they fight for position. Best parking spots are very important. I've seen warriors wait for their preferred spots instead of taking less convenient ones. The territorial behavior goes even to places where there is no fighting. The road signs made it even more complicated. Direction signs, speed limits, and warning signs all give important information to the warriors. Zara saw drivers use only the signs to help them get through complicated interchanges. Standardized visual markers give us a full picture of what's going on the battlefield, she wrote. These signs are all warriors need to find their way in unknown places. There is a lot of information, but the standardization makes it easy for everyone to understand. Any warrior from any place can read the signs and find their way around. She was especially interested in rest stops along highways. These places had gas, food, bathrooms, and parking. She saw long-distance travelers stop, take a short break and then keep going. She said, staging facilities along major routes support long-range operations. Warriors can rest, resupply, and take care of their units without leaving the combat zone during long campaigns. Warriors are never more than an hour away from help services because of the way the buildings are spaced out. She was impressed by the systems that keep an eye on traffic. She saw cameras set up along highways to keep an eye on traffic. Variable message signs warn drivers about traffic jams, accidents, or bad road conditions ahead. Real-time battlefield intelligence is gathered and sent out all the time, Zara wrote down. Central Command keeps an eye on all operations and sends tactical updates to warriors through electronic signs. The information warfare tools are very advanced. They've set up a system that lets every soldier see what's going on the battlefield right now. She saw that the message sign changed from showing the time to warning of an accident 3 miles ahead. She saw traffic start to slow down as drivers took in this information and changed their plans within seconds. She said, information spreads quickly through the system. Strategic intelligence has an effect on tactical decisions right away. The communication between Central Command and each warrior is very quick. Zara then looked more closely at the cars themselves. She used the sensors on her ship to look at how they were built, trying to figure out how people made so many of them. She was amazed by factories. She found a big car factory and watched as raw materials came in one end and finished cars rolled off the assembly line at the other. The rate of production was mind-boggling, 1 car every 60 seconds. She wrote, industrial production capabilities are extraordinary, and her voice was full of real awe. They've set up automated manufacturing processes that make combat units all the time, 24 hours a day. The size of the production suggests that they are both replacing losses and growing their forces at the same time. She did the math and felt her heart race. This factory made a car every minute, which was more than 1,000 cars a day. And she knew that there were many more factories like this one all over the world. They're making millions of new units every year, she said quietly. The manufacturing base needed to keep this war going is unlike anything the Federation has ever seen. Even during the Centauri Wars, production never got this big. She was also impressed by the range of companies that made them. Ford, Toyota, Honda, Mercedes, BMW, and many more make similar units with small differences. She thought of this as rival military contractors, each trying to make the best combat unit. She said, competition between manufacturers drives innovation. I've seen different ways of thinking about design. Some put speed and maneuverability first. Some people care more about size and scaring people. Some put more emphasis on the warrior's comfort and luxury. The variety suggests that the military-industrial complex is very competitive. It was clear that dealerships were places where people could get hired and get equipment. She saw people come, look at different cars and then drive away in new ones. The sales process could take hours, which suggests that there were long training or briefing sessions. She wrote, "New warriors are trained in special places. The process of choosing is very thorough. Warriors look at many different types of units before making a choice. This means they can choose gear that fits their own fighting style or tactical preferences. The personalization is strange, but it seems to work." She was especially confused by how to pay for cars. She listened in on conversations between banks and dealers to try to figure out how the money was moving. The amounts were huge, often equal to months or years of a warrior's pay. She said, "They put a lot of their own money into getting their combat units. Some warriors go into debt for years to get the gear they want. Their personal investment makes them more committed to the fight. If they've given up so much to get a unit, they'll protect and keep it at all costs." Zara made a choice on the third day that would change everything she thought she knew about what she was seeing. She made the choice to pay attention to what the people were saying. Using her universal translator, she started to listen in on phone calls, radio shows, and even conversations happening inside cars. What she heard didn't match what she thought, but she still thought she was seeing a culture of war. At first, a morning radio show confused her. Two hosts were joking, laughing, and talking about trivial things like sports and celebrity gossip. She heard this broadcast in a lot of cars at the same time. Psychological warfare broadcasts meant to keep morale up, she wrote down. Command keeps in touch with warriors all the time, giving them something to do and keeping their minds off of the stress of battle. The happy tone hides the sad truth that they all have to deal with every day. It's a complex form of psychological conditioning. One of the hosts joked about the traffic by saying, "The 405 is a parking lot this morning. If you're going west, you might want to take a different route." Zara's take: Command is giving tactical updates that look like casual conversation. Warriors are told that there will be a lot of resistance on certain routes and are told to change their approach vectors. The way the information is given is subtle but works. She heard a woman stuck in traffic talk to her boss on the phone. "I'm sorry I'm late. There was a lot of traffic. An accident happened on the freeway." "Yeah, it happens," the boss said, tiredly accepting. "Just come when you can." Zara's take: Casualties happen so often that commanders plan for delays. Warriors are given some leeway when conditions on the battlefield make it impossible for them to arrive on time. Everyone agrees that delays due to combat are okay. A teen girl talking to her mom gave us another look at what Zara thought of as their warrior culture. "Mom, I passed the test to get my license. Can I drive the car tonight?" The mother said, "Okay, but be careful. And get back home by 11. Zara says, young warriors have to go through formal training before they can fight on their own. Before letting their kids fight on their own, parents teach them how to survive. The coming-of-age ceremony is all about getting the right to fly a unit by yourself. She saw a driving school in action with an instructor sitting in the passenger seat and a nervous student practicing parking. The teacher's calm guidance and the student's intense focus only made Zara's misunderstanding worse. Formal training programs teach important combat skills, she wrote. Novice warriors train with the help of experts until they show that they can survive on their own. The training is hard and covers a lot of ground. If they don't get good enough, they can't get a license to run a combat unit. She heard friends talking at a coffee shop and it caught her attention. "Hey man, I got a ticket for speeding yesterday. The cop stopped me because I was going 70 in a 55 zone." His friend laughed. "That stinks. How much?" $200. "And it's going to be covered by my insurance." Zara's interpretation: Command authority punishes warriors who are too aggressive. The enforcement keeps tactical discipline and stops individual warriors from messing up the overall strategy by acting carelessly. The fines make sure that people follow the rules. She stopped a husband and wife from having a heated argument in their car. They had been stuck in traffic for 40 minutes and they were getting angry. The wife yelled, "I told you we should have left earlier." The husband shot back, "How was I supposed to know there would be an accident? There is always an accident. There's something every day." Zara's take: The mental toll of constant war even strains family ties. Warriors hit each other when they're stressed out, which makes it hard for them to control their behavior. The fact that they keep going despite this conflict shows how strong they are. A kid in the back seat asked, "Are we there yet?" At the same time, both parents said, "No." Zara's take: Even the young take part in long combat operations, but they aren't as patient. Adults show the conditioning that lets them get through tough times, while kids who are still learning these skills show how uncomfortable they are. She heard a lot of people talk about car problems. My car is making a strange sound. I have to bring it to the mechanic. My engine light came on. I need new wheels. Zara's take. Unit maintenance is always a worry. Warriors need to make sure their gear is always ready for battle. Mechanical failures during battle could be very bad, so they are always on the lookout for any signs of wear and tear. The culture of maintenance is ingrained and important. She was interested in a group of co-workers talking about their commutes. They talked about the best ways to avoid traffic, compared routes, and complained about construction delays. To Zara, this was warriors sharing tactical information. Today, my commute took 45 minutes. Not too bad. You're lucky. I spent an hour and a half. There was work being done on the bridge, so it was down to one lane. Have you tried going through the city? That's sometimes faster. Zara's view. Warriors are always looking at and improving their tactical plans. They share information about the state of the battlefield and suggest other ways to win. Sharing knowledge among all of us makes us more effective as a whole. It's a complicated, decentralized way to look at tactics. She was especially interested in seeing road rage happen. A driver cut off another car, and the angry driver honked loudly, tailgate, and finally pulled up next to the other car to yell angry words. Individual combat challenges happen a lot, Zara wrote. When one warrior thinks another's move is rude or aggressive, they may challenge them personally. These fights get out of hand quickly, but they don't often lead to real fights. The show of aggression seems enough to show who is in charge or let off steam. A police officer stopping a speeder made her misunderstanding even worse. The officer came up with his hand on his gun, showing that he was careful. The driver sat nervously with his hands on the wheel. She said, "People treat command authority warriors with a lot of respect. When enforcement units challenge regular warriors, they immediately take submissive positions. They know that command units can kick them out of combat operations or give them harsh punishments. Strictly keeping the hierarchy." She heard a father and son talking about how to drive. Zara thought the father's patience, clear instructions, and gentle corrections made it seem like a seasoned warrior was training his successor. "Slow down before you make a turn. That's too quick. You'll lose control. Cadet. This way. Better. Always look in your mirrors. You need to always be aware of your surroundings. I get it. This isn't a joke. You need to pay attention. Someone could get hurt if you make a mistake out here." Zara's take. Elders teach the young with a mix of patience and strictness. They stress how serious combat operations are. Training for survival requires constant awareness and careful movement. The dad knows that his son's life depends on learning these skills. A news report said that 38,000 people died in traffic accidents in the United States last year alone. Zara felt a cold wave of fear wash over her. She wrote, "The number of casualties is staggering," her voice shaking. 38,000 soldiers died in just 1 year in one area. There must be hundreds of thousands of deaths around the world every year. But they keep going. They don't want peace. They don't talk about treaties. They just accept these losses as the price they have to pay to keep living the way they do. She saw an ad for insurance that caught her eye. Accident? Get in touch with our experienced lawyers. We will fight for the money you deserve. Zara's take. Legal warriors are experts at getting resources for injured fighters. There is a whole professional class that is in charge of distributing resources after a battle. This shows that there are so many casualties that specialized support systems are needed. The society has learned to deal with constant losses. She heard a song on the radio that was about being stuck in traffic, the daily grind, and fighting to make it through another day. She thought of it as a warrior's song, a way for them to show who they are through music. She said, "Their entertainment media reflects and strengthens their culture of war. Songs honor the fight, make war seem normal, and get kids ready for the life they'll have. The mental conditioning is complete and starts at birth." Zara thought that a mother singing lullabies to her baby in the back seat was the first step in training a warrior. She thought the soft music was meant to calm the child, even in the middle of a battle, and teach them to stay calm during combat operations from a young age. Zara realized on the 4th day of her observation that she needed to put together her findings and send a report to the fleet. But first she wanted to see one more thing about how people act, what they do at night. After midnight the city changed. Traffic got a lot lighter, but it never completely stopped. She saw that delivery trucks were taking over the highways, bringing goods from warehouses to stores. People who worked the night shift traveled to and from work. Lights flashing, emergency vehicles sped through the streets. "Operations continue even when there isn't much going on," she wrote. "The machine of war never really sleeps." Specialized units work at night to move supplies, keep infrastructure in good shape, and respond to emergencies. The 24-hour operational tempo is absolute. At 3 in the morning, she followed an ambulance with its sirens blaring through empty streets. It got to a house where someone had a heart attack, loaded the patient, and then sped back through the dark toward the hospital. She said, "Medical extraction units work all the time. No break for bad weather or darkness. It's great that they want to protect warriors, but it seems pointless because of the high death rates." A police car stopped a driver who was speeding on a deserted highway. Zara was interested in what was going on, the careful approach, the exchange of papers, and the eventual ticket. "Even with little traffic, tactical protocols are still being enforced," she wrote. "Command keeps discipline at all times. No matter what happens on the battlefield, the rules of engagement must be followed." She saw a truck driver driving alone for hours on end across the country, hauling cargo. The driver drank coffee, listened to loud music, and did everything else he could think of to stay awake. "Long-range solo operations require extraordinary endurance," Zara said. "These warriors go on journeys that last for days, and they stay alert the whole time even when they are tired and alone. The mental strength needed is amazing." Zara watched the city wake up as dawn approached. Homes' lights flickered on. People came out, got into their cars, and started another day. The morning rush hour started to build up in just a few minutes. "They start over," she said quietly. "They go back to fighting after a short break. The same soldiers I saw yesterday are back in their units, ready to fight again today. The cycle never ends." She made a choice. She had had enough. She had to tell the fleet what she had found right away. What she had seen was too important and too risky to put off. Zara turned on her ship's communication array so she could send a message to the nearest Federation outpost faster than light. As she sorted through her thoughts, her hands shook. How could she get across how big what she had found was? She started to write down her official report, and even though she was upset, her voice was steady. "This is Scout Commander Zara of the Federation Survey Ship Alpha 73. I'm sending a priority alert to all Federation ships and the Command Authority. Crimson 9 Delta is the code for authorization. This is a Level 1 threat assessment for the third planet in the Sol system, which is known locally as Earth." Zara stopped for a moment to gather her thoughts before continuing. "I have spent 4 days closely watching the Earth's most common species, which call themselves humans. What I found is completely new and very troubling. This species poses an unprecedented threat to the stability of the Federation." She pulled up video from her observations so she could send it along with her report as proof. "Humans are part of a culture of war that is going on all over the world and affects every part of their society. The conflict is not confined to military forces or contested territories. Instead, every adult in their society takes part in organized combat operations every day, which they have made a part of their normal lives." Zara chose videos of rush hour traffic, which showed the endless streams of cars stuck in their daily battle. "They've made armored units that move on their own and they call them automobiles, or cars. According to current estimates, there are more than 1 billion of these units in use around the world. Hundreds of millions of people enter these units every day and fight in coordinated ways on specially made battlefield corridors that they call roads or highways." She included close-up looks at each vehicle, pointing out what she thought were weapon systems. Each unit has advanced offensive and defensive systems. Illumination devices mounted on the front serve as targeting systems and weapons of psychological warfare. Chemical warfare deployment systems constantly let poisonous substances into the air. Acoustic weapons let people talk to each other on the battlefield and show threats. Rear-facing warning systems coordinate tactical movements across thousands of units at once. Zara chose footage of complicated traffic patterns that showed how lanes change, merge, and compete for position. "Their tactical sophistication is extraordinary. People are very good at flying planes and can do complicated maneuvers at high speeds in very close groups. They keep track of several units at once, guess where they will go, and react right away to changes in the situation. The cognitive load is very high, but they do these tasks every day, sometimes for hours at a time." She looked at the infrastructure like the huge highway systems that crisscross the world. "They have built a global network of multi-level combat corridors. The engineering is huge, with thousands of miles of reinforced pathways, elevated sections, tunnels, bridges, and other structures, all designed to support ongoing warfare. They always take care of this infrastructure even during active combat." Zara's voice got more urgent as she went on. "The number of deaths is terrible. Based on intercepted communications, they lose hundreds of thousands of people every year in car accidents. But they don't back down. They don't want peace. They take these losses in stride and keep going without stopping. She showed videos of accidents, how people respond to emergencies, and how casually people talk about traffic deaths. Their psychological conditioning is what makes them especially dangerous. They grow up in a culture of war from the time they are born. Children learn tactical awareness by watching others as passengers. They go through formal combat training and get certified after about 16 solar cycles. Every adult is a fully trained warrior. Zara chose videos of families, kids in car seats, and teens learning to drive. The conditioning across generations is complete. Parents teach their kids. Schools become part of the network for combat logistics. Their whole way of life supports and strengthens the culture of war. They don't know anything else. For them, this fighting every day is normal, expected, and required. She showed video of the many different kinds of vehicles like trucks, sports cars, motorcycles, and buses. They have made special kinds of units for each job. Quick attack units for quick strikes. Heavy assault units for scaring people and moving cargo. Reconnaissance units for moving around and gathering information. Troop transports for moving many soldiers at once. Command units for coordination and enforcement. The specialization points to a more advanced and mature way of thinking about war. Zara's voice got lower and more threatening. Their industrial capacity is the most worrying thing. They can make things that are much bigger than anything in the Federation. Every year they make millions of new combat units. I saw one factory making one car every 60 seconds. They have a lot of places like this. They can basically replace losses and grow their forces as much as they want. She put in video of the car factory where the production line never stopped. They also have a lot of experience with extracting and refining resources. They use petroleum-based compounds to power their units, and they've built a huge distribution network to make sure they always have access to fuel. There are gas stations every few miles. Warriors are never too far from getting more supplies. The logistics network is great, and any Federation military command would want it. Zara stopped for a moment to think about what to say next. I need to stress how big their commitment is. This is not a short-term fight or a war in one area. This is how they live. They have built their whole civilization around these daily battles. They've built cities that are meant to support the infrastructure for war. They've changed their economies, their education systems, and their social structures so that they can keep fighting. She showed videos of parking lots, gas stations, and the huge areas set aside for storing and servicing cars. They put a lot of money and time into these operations. Parking structures, which are basically garrison facilities for inactive units, take up as much space in big cities as homes or businesses. They care about their combat units as much as they do about food or shelter. Zara's voice got even more serious. Based on what I've seen, I have to make the following suggestions to Federation Command. She took a breath to calm down. 1. Earth should be put in the level 1 threat category. Don't think less of this species. They have a deep-seated culture of war. They could misinterpret any first contact situation through a combat lens. 2. Do not try to engage in military action. They have a lot more factories and soldiers than we do. They can get hundreds of millions of pilots ready for battle in a matter of hours. They have more than 1 billion units of combat. For generations they have been waging war all the time. They would win against any Federation force just because they had so many people. 3. Set up a quarantine zone around the Sol system. Don't let humans spread beyond their planet until we know more about their culture and reasons for doing so. If they figure out how to travel faster than light while keeping their current way of thinking, they could throw the whole galaxy off balance. 4. For any future contact, send diplomats instead of military observers. People need to be treated with care. Any aggressive move will make them ready to fight. They need to be involved with a lot of care and respect for other cultures. Zara added the last shot. A sunset over a highway full of cars with thousands of people going home after another day of their never-ending battle. I know my report may seem alarmist. I have looked over my results many times, doubting my own interpretations. But the proof is too much to ignore. I have never met a species that is better at war than humans. They don't have to fight. It's just who they are that they fight. It's a part of their culture, their minds, and their everyday lives. She stopped one last time before finishing. This species makes no sense to me. They have a lot of willpower, a lot of stamina, and smart tactical thinking. But they use these gifts in daily combat that doesn't seem to have any strategic purpose other than their own mobility. They poison their own air, accept huge losses, and spend a lot of money to keep operations going that could be stopped by making different choices in society. Why do they do this? I don't know. Maybe future diplomatic talks will help us figure things out. But until we know more, I suggest being very careful. There are billions of warriors on Earth who have shown that they will put up with anything, even death, to keep their way of life. Signing off now is Scout Commander Zara. I hope the Federation Council takes my words seriously. End transmission. Zara pressed the send button, and her report flew through the galaxy at speeds faster than light. In a few days it would reach Federation Command. She sat back in her chair and was tired and shaken by what she had seen. She was supposed to observe for one more day, but she wasn't sure she could handle watching more of the endless fighting between people. It was getting too hard on my mind. Zara chose to do one last day of observation, even though she was very tired. Before she left, she had to be completely sure of what she had found. Her report could be very important for the lives of millions of people and animals. She decided to look at a different part of how people act, their leisure activities. She thought that maybe she could find proof that humans did peaceful things when they weren't fighting. It might give her hope that they weren't as militaristic as she thought they were. What she found only made her fears stronger. She followed a family to what they called a theme park, which was a huge place for fun. The parking lot was huge and could hold thousands of cars. She watched as the family made their way to the park through the morning traffic and then found a spot in the huge parking garage. She said, even recreation needs combat operations to get to. Even when they're not working, they can't get away from the culture of war. She saw something in the park that scared her. Rides for kids that felt like driving. Kids crashed into each other on purpose in bumper cars, and teens raced each other to see who could get the fastest lap time in racing simulators. They trained their kids through entertainment, Zara wrote down, her voice empty. Even games are meant to help you get better at fighting. Kids laugh and cheer while pretending to do the things they will need to do to survive real combat as adults. The cultural programming is all-encompassing and unavoidable. She watched families race each other on a go-kart track, bumping into each other and fighting for position with happy aggression. She said, the species enjoys simulated combat. They've made training for war into a hobby. Parents spend a lot of money to let their kids practice fighting moves in safe places. The happiness they show when they do this makes it seem like they really enjoy the fight. She was both fascinated and horrified by a car show at a convention center. Hundreds of cars were on display, all of them shining like new. People walked around them talking about the designs, the specifications, and the features. Some cars were changed so much that they were unrecognizable, turning them into one-of-a-kind combat units. They worship their fighting units, Zara said. They spend time and money making them look perfect. Some warriors change their units a lot, making weapons of war that are unique to them. The attachment goes beyond usefulness and into the realm of identity and self-expression. She watched a drag race at a speedway. Cars that had been modified to go as fast as possible raced in straight-line sprints, reaching speeds of over 200 miles per hour in just a few seconds. The crowd went crazy as the engine screamed and the tires smoked. She wrote, competitive combat training is a sport for spectators. Thousands of people come to see elite warriors show off what their units can do. People look up to the fastest and most aggressive pilots as heroes. Not only does the culture accept fighting, it also glorifies it. She started to doubt everything she thought she knew about how people think after going to a monster truck rally. Big trucks, each weighing more than 10,000 pounds, crushed smaller cars under their huge wheels. The crowd cheered every time something destructive happened. They celebrate destruction, Zara said in a whisper. They cheer as one unit crushes another. The psychological effects are scary. Either they've gotten so used to seeing cars get destroyed that it entertains them, or they're using these displays to let out anger that could otherwise cause problems in their society. She watched a NASCAR race for hours with 40 cars going around a track at almost 200 miles per hour, only a few inches apart. The strategic complexity was impressive. Drafting, pit stops, managing tires, and figuring out how much fuel to use. When crashes happened, and they did in a big way, the crowd gasped and cheered at the same time. She said, elite combat training at the highest level. These warriors have trained their skills to almost superhuman levels. They can stay focused for hours and make split-second decisions at speeds that would kill most Federation pilots. And people love them. The best warriors are famous people who millions of people look up to. A motorcycle rally gave me a different point of view. Thousands of bikers came together and their bikes showed a different way of fighting. Speed and maneuverability over protection. She watched as they rode in big groups, the sound of the engines making a loud symphony. Subculture identified, Zara wrote down. Some warriors would rather have less protection and take more risks in exchange for being able to move and fight faster. They form tribes and recognize each other by the types of gear they use and the way they ride. The different ways of thinking about combat are amazing. She saw a traffic safety class where teens practiced how to drive in an emergency. The teachers showed them how to deal with skids, steer clear of obstacles, and stay in control when things get dangerous. The teens practiced hard because they knew that these skills could save their lives. Formal survival training for kids, she said. Before they can get a license to fight on their own, teens must show that they can handle emergencies. The training is very realistic and thorough. They learn to expect danger and practice their responses until they become second nature. A car museum gave us a look at the past. She saw vehicles from earlier centuries that were less advanced than today's vehicles but still clearly belonged to the same tradition of warfare. Displays showed how cars have changed over time, from slow, simple models to today's high-tech combat units. Zara wrote, "The culture of war has been around for more than 100 years. They've been improving their cars and strategies for generations. Every new version got faster, better, and more deadly. The evolution is like how weapons have changed in other species, but the scale and length of time are new." She found a memorial to people who died in car accidents. It was a wall with thousands of names on it. There were fresh flowers at its base. Families stood in front of it, touching names, crying, and remembering loved ones who had died in the war. "They're sad about their dead," Zara said, feeling bad for them. "They know how much it costs. They know that their culture of war kills hundreds of thousands of people every year. But they keep going. They either think there is no other choice or the cultural pressure is too strong to ignore. Maybe both." A driving teacher told a class of nervous teens, "Always think that other drivers might do something unexpected. Give yourself a way out. Be on the lookout. Never let your guard down." Zara's take, veterans teach young people how to think about survival. Always be ready for attacks. Always have a plan for escape. Don't ever relax. The psychological conditioning starts early and keeps people on their toes. By the time they're adults, being careful is second nature. She saw a YouTube video of someone driving to work every day with a dashboard camera. The driver told the story of their trip, pointing out bad drivers, complaining about traffic, and being happy when they found a clear stretch of road. The video was seen by millions of people. They write down and share their experiences in battle, Zara said. Individual warriors tell huge audiences about their daily struggles. Some people watch, talk about what they see, and share their own stories. They've built a global community of people who have been through the same war trauma. It's both sad and inspiring at the same time. A commercial for a new car model focused on safety features like airbags, collision detection, automatic braking, and stronger construction. It was clear what they meant. These features would help you survive crashes that were going to happen anyway. "They've accepted that collisions are going to happen," Zara wrote. "Instead of stopping conflict, they focus on getting through it. They design their units to keep warriors safe during impacts. The defensive technology is great, but the idea that crashes are unavoidable shows how fatalistic they are about the daily fighting." She found online forums where people talked about their commutes, told stories, gave advice, and let off steam. The talks showed that everyone knew a lot about traffic patterns, construction zones, accident black spots, and tactical shortcuts. She said, "There is a lot of sharing of knowledge. Warriors work together over long distances, sharing information to stay alive and get things done faster. The tactical database for the whole group is huge and always being updated. With little effort, any warrior can access centuries of combat knowledge." Zara found a philosophy book that talked about the psychology of commuting. The author looked into why people put up with such stressful daily routines, looking at the psychological toll and social pressures that kept the system going. The book's existence indicated that certain individuals scrutinized their culture. However, the system endured nonetheless. "Some people see the problem," Zara said. "They think critically about their society and ask themselves if the culture of war is good for them. But these philosophical warriors keep fighting. The system is too set in its ways. Individual dissent cannot overcome collective momentum." At sunset, Zara took one last tour of the city before her last day of observation ended. The golden light lit up thousands of cars that were going home. As the darkness grew, the brake lights turned red. As night fell, the headlights started to turn on. From her high-up place, it was beautiful in a horrible way. The lights made patterns and flows of movement that looked like blood moving through arteries or a living thing breathing. Zara said to herself, "They're so human. So determined, so flexible, and so unyielding. They've built a civilization that asks them to do things that are impossible every day, and they just put up with it. They keep going. They don't give up. Every day they get up and do it again." She thought about the Xerine, her own people. Would they be so determined if they had to deal with the same problems? She didn't know. The Xerine valued peace, order, and efficiency. This human culture was crazy, stressful, and seemed to make no sense. But it worked. Every day, billions of people took part, and their civilization not only survived but thrived. Maybe, she wrote softly, I've gotten everything wrong. Maybe what I see as war is just how they live in a world with a lot of people and not a lot of resources. Maybe the fighting I see is really cooperation on a level I can't understand. Even though they compete, they share the roads. They follow the rules even when they don't want to. They coordinate movements across millions of units without having a central control. She stopped, and for the first time her voice sounded unsure. But no. The dead and wounded are real. The stress is real. The violence is real. It cost them a lot to make whatever they make. The question is whether they chose to pay this price or had to. I want to understand. Zara chose what to do. She would be leaving in the morning. She had seen, written down, and thought about enough. It was time to go back to Federation space and let others decide what to do with humanity. She looked down at the city one last time as she turned on the engines of her ship and got ready to leave. Millions of people were stuck in traffic down there, on their way home to their families. They were making plans for the next day when they would wake up and do it all over again. Good luck, she said quietly to them. I hope you find what you're fighting for and what you want to achieve. And for the sake of the galaxy, I hope you never use this amazing willpower to fight in real life. If you do, nothing will be able to stop you. Even 6 months after Zara left, the Federation Council was still talking about her report. Some members said that quarantine should happen right away. Some people wanted to be careful when talking to each other diplomatically. Some even suggested taking military action first, but this was quickly rejected as both wrong and impractical. The Council finally came to a decision. They would send a diplomatic team to Earth, made up of first-contact experts who would be honest and open. If Zara's assessment was right, being open might be the safest way to go. The Council hoped that people would respect direct communication. The diplomatic ship entered the solar system of Earth and sent out signals on all frequencies saying it meant no harm. They got a reply from something called NASA within hours, and within days a historic meeting was set up at the United Nations building in New York. The Federation delegation was led by Ambassador Krell, a veteran diplomat from the Centauri Collective. He had read Zara's report very carefully and was careful when he got to Earth. His team was made up of security guards, xenobiologists, linguists, and experts on culture. The first meeting was official and ceremonial. People in charge of the aliens were excited, curious, and yes, a little scared when they arrived. Krell thought they were very calm though. They did a good job of dealing with aliens for the first time. After the small talk, Krell decided to deal with Zara's worries head-on. It seemed like the most honest thing to do. Krell started slowly, we've been watching your planet for a while. One of our scouts spent a few days looking into your civilization. Her report was worrying. The people who were there leaned forward with interest. How? Asked Sarah Chin, the U.S. president, who is a practical woman. Krell thought for a moment and then decided that being completely honest was the best thing to do. She thought you were fighting a war on every planet. That your whole civilization was built around fighting all the time. That every grown-up in your society was a trained soldier. The room was filled with confused silence. Then, slowly, one of the human delegates, a younger man from the transportation department, began to smile. Then to laugh. Then to laugh out loud. I'm sorry, he said, trying to calm down. I'm sorry, but she thought we were fighting? With whom? Krell's confidence began to waver. With each other? She saw millions of armored units fighting all the time on your roads. The deaths, the violence, the never-ending operations. President Chen's face showed that he understood. She laughed too, even though she tried to stay calm and diplomatic. Ambassador Krell, she said softly, your scout saw our traffic. Our vehicles. Our daily trip to work. Yes, Krell said. The operations in combat. The president said, it's not combat. It's a way to get around. We just want to get to work. There was a deep silence after that. Krell's team looked at each other with confused and growing fear on their faces. Just getting around? Krell said it again in a weak voice. A human traffic engineer was called in to explain. She brought up graphs, charts, and numbers. She talked about city planning, rush hour, how car culture has grown, and the problems that come with building infrastructure in places with a lot of people. It's not war, she said calmly. I'll admit that some days it does feel like it. There are just millions of people trying to get to where they need to go at the same time on the same small road. Krell felt dizzy. The dead. Accidents? President Chin said in a soft voice. Sad accidents. We're always trying to lower them by making cars safer, improving infrastructure, and teaching the public. But you are right that it is a big problem. About 38,000 people die in the United States each year. And you just go along with it? The Secretary of Transportation said, "We're trying to fix it. Self-driving cars, more public transportation, and redesigning cities. But it takes time to change the way things are built and the way people think. This system was passed down to us from the past." One of Krell's experts on culture spoke up. "But what about the training? The certificate? The race for the job?" A person said, "Driver's education. We need to see proof that people can drive safely before we let them drive alone. And yes, people can be competitive about how quickly they get to where they're going. But it's not training for combat. The places to fill up? Gas stations. Our cars use gas. The garrison buildings? Parking lots and garages. The sound war? Car horns. We honk when we're mad or trying to warn someone. The command units with special powers? Police cars and ambulances. In an emergency they have the right of way." Every answer hit Krell like a punch in the face. The weapon systems were lights and safety features. They were trying to cut down on pollution from chemical warfare. The never-ending fight was just a traffic jam. The warriors were people who traveled to work. The daily commute was the combat operations. "I need to sit down," Krell said weakly, and he did. Chin, the president, looked sorry. "I get why you're confused. Without any context, our traffic must look crazy from the outside. Honestly, it sometimes feels crazy to us too." A sociologist said, "We made car culture in the 20th century before we really knew what would happen in the long run. We're kinda stuck with it now. Cars are a big part of how our cities are built. We have jobs in different places. A lot of places don't have good public transportation. For most Americans, driving is not a choice, it's a need." "But the scale," Krell said weakly. 1 billion cars. "The number is actually 1.4 billion worldwide," the Secretary of Transportation said. "It's a huge problem with infrastructure. We know about the issues: stress, pollution, traffic jams, and accidents. But it takes decades to change a system this big. We're working on it." A human delegate who was an environmental scientist said, "If it helps, a lot of us hate traffic too. We're working for better public transportation, cities that are easier to walk around in, and the chance to work from home. Younger people don't care as much about owning a car as older people do. Things are changing, but slowly." Krell felt both relieved and embarrassed at the same time. "So you're not a culture of war? You're not teaching every citizen how to fight from the time they are born?" "No way," President Chin laughed. "We're just trying to get to work and back home. I have to admit that some days it does feel like war after sitting in traffic for 2 hours." People patiently talked about their transportation systems, the problems with their infrastructure, and their efforts to get better for hours. They showed videos of their public transportation systems, bike lanes, and tests with self-driving cars. They also talked about what was bothering them: the stress of getting to work, the time that was lost, the harm to the environment, the deaths and accidents. They weren't happy about their traffic problems. They were working hard to fix them. "We're not warriors," President Chin said at the end. "We're just people trying to get by in a system that isn't perfect. We're changing, coming up with new ideas and getting better. But it's still a work in progress." Krell apologized and called his ship, asking them to quickly pass on a message to Federation Command. The message was clear: forget what you heard about the threat. Earth is not a culture of war. They just aren't very good at managing traffic. Zara was horrified when she heard the news. For weeks, she couldn't go to the Federation headquarters. She had filed a Level 1 threat assessment, the highest level of alert, because of traffic jams. But over time she started to find it funny. And as she thought about it more, she realized that her mistake had taught her something important about making assumptions. She had seen how people act through the lens of her own culture's experiences. She had seen patterns that looked like war because that's what she was looking for. Because she was looking for threats, she had seen every action in the worst light possible. She never thought that maybe, just maybe, the people were just having a really bad commute. Zara was sent back to Earth a year later as part of the Federation's cultural exchange program. At first she wasn't sure, but she decided to go ahead. She wanted to really get to know these people without being afraid or confused. Maria, a friendly woman who worked with her, offered to show her around Los Angeles on her first day there. Maria shook her car keys and said, "We'll drive." They got stuck in traffic on the 405 freeway right away. Zara sat in the passenger seat, watching the endless line of brake lights in front of her and listening to Maria talk about bad drivers and construction delays. After 45 minutes of hardly moving, Maria looked over and saw Zara's face, which was a mix of amusement and horror. What? Maria said. Zara said slowly, I watched this for 4 days. And I thought you were getting ready to take over the galaxy. Maria laughed out loud. Sweetheart, we're just trying to get to the mall. Zara also started to laugh and she couldn't stop once she started. All the stress, fear, and dramatic warnings she had sent to the Federation were all because of traffic. I'm never going to get over this, Zara said finally, wiping her eyes. Probably not, Maria said with a smile. But hey, look at it this way, you really praised humanity. You thought we were so scary that we could take over the whole galaxy. Zara said, you were scary? I'd never seen anything like it before. The determination, the endurance, and the refusal to give up no matter what. Maria thought about it and nodded. Yeah, well, the traffic is awful. But we handle it. That's just how we are. After 2 hours they finally got to the mall. Zara shook her head in amazement as she walked through the parking lot and looked back at the sea of cars. She said, you know what's funny? It's even more impressive now that I know what I'm looking at. You choose to do this every day and you don't even think of yourselves as very tough. That's amazing. Maria shrugged. It's just life. Everyone has to deal with something, right? Traffic is what happens to us. Zara thought about what she'd learned as they walked into the mall. People weren't warriors getting ready to take over the galaxy. They were just regular people living in a world that was complicated and full of people. They made fun of it, complained about it, and kept going. And for some reason, that made them even more interesting than she had first thought. Zara was asked to talk about her experiences at a Federation Cultural Exchange Symposium years later. She told her story to a group of diplomats, scientists, and cultural experts from all over the galaxy. I made guesses, she said in the end. I saw what I thought I would see instead of what was really there. I misread people's behavior because I used my own cultural lens. It's a lesson in humility and a reminder that you need more than just watching to understand another species. It takes understanding, patience, and a willingness to question what you think you know. She stopped for a moment and then smiled. That said, if you ever go to Earth, stay away from the 405 freeway during rush hour. Believe me on this one. People laughed and Zara got off the stage. She thought about her friends on Earth as she left the stage. They were probably stuck in traffic at that very moment, singing along to the radio and making plans for the night. They weren't fighters. They were just regular people trying to live their lives as best they could. And wasn't that what everyone in the galaxy was doing?